I'm in the New Forest, the largest ancient piece of woodland in southern Britain, and the wildlife here is simply spectacular.
In this series, I'm visiting some of Britain's most outstanding areas of natural beauty to explore the incredible wildlife that has made these places their home.
This is the New Forest in Hampshire. Actually, there's nothing new about it at all. This area was set aside for royal hunting at the end of the 11th century by William the Conqueror. Unwittingly, he left our nation an incredible legacy, one of the finest nature reserves in the world.
The New Forest stretches 145 square miles, encompassing a diverse tapestry of windswept heathland, grass lawn, and ancient woodland. These layers of rich habitat support a fascinating mix of plants and creatures. While I'm here, I'm hoping to take a close look at a forest beetle, catch a glimpse of the iconic fallow deer, as well as the real jewel of the heath, the mysterious nightjar. This woodland is one of the last remaining remnants of the ancient deciduous forest that once covered much of Britain. Its rich mix of oak, ash, beech and yew tower over a relatively open understory that has been stripped bare of its vegetation since medieval times.
One of the things about the New Forest that makes it so appealing is the wonderful views you get through the forest. You can see for 200 metres in almost any direction. It's like somebody has come through with a hedge trimmer and trimmed all the branches off at eye level. And the reason for that is browsing. This is a browse line. Animals have reached up and bitten off all the leaves on the trees. And it's quite a high browse line. It's not just the deer that are involved. It's the ponies here in the forest too. You can see some ponies just through there. They live through the year out here in the wild. They're all in ownership, but they live out in the forest. And they trim the branches back and give us these incredible views. I absolutely love the atmosphere that creates in this forest.
The living trees provide shelter for a wealth of wildlife, including over 100 species of breeding birds. But the dead trees also provide a vital part of the forest ecology. These veterans that litter the forest floor are a haven for a fascinating mix of insects and invertebrates that live and feed on the decaying timber.
Take a look at this. This is a real local speciality. This is a tanner beetle. Nationally, these are rare, but in the New Forest, they do really well. And he's a type of longhorn beetle. You can see his long antennae there. And this is the perfect time of year to go looking for these beetles. They emerge between July and September. He's really coming to the end of his life. He won't spend long in this stage. He spent several years, though, in the larval stage, munching his way through the logs here in the forest. I'll just pop him back. There he goes. You can see here just how soft all of this stuff is. And that, of course, is caused by larvae coming through here, fungal mycelium. It's just as it should be. It's wonderful. You've got young trees, middle-aged trees, old trees, and decaying trees.
To me, trees are the woodland equivalent of a coral reef. Even a hollow tree trunk is literally buzzing with activity. These formidable-looking hornets use the decaying wood fibre to build a protective shell around their nests.
The interesting thing is they keep flying past me in that direction towards some old trees over there. And it's just worth investigating because there might be something that's attracting them. Hornets, butterflies, all sorts. And this is where they're coming. There's a unique smell emanating from this tree, and it's coming from this liquid here that you see on the bark there. And it smells of ferment mixed with oak barrel. This is an excretion by a moth larvae that is living on the inner bark of this tree. It's called the goat moth larvae because people say that this smells a bit like a goat. To me, it smells more like a barrel from a brewery, and it attracts insects from all over this area. They come here, they drink this liquid, and they become intoxicated. So it's like the local pub for insects. And these larvae will be in this tree for several years because the material that they are ingesting takes a lot of digesting. The cellulose is very difficult to process. And then eventually they'll go down into the ground to pupate and then emerge as a moth later on.
Almost 2/3 of Britain's insect species are found here. With such rich pickings, it's no wonder that the New Forest has become an important habitat for bats, which can eat over 3,000 insects each night. Keeper Howard Taylor routinely checks the 200 nesting boxes that have been set up across the forest.
No biting.
Wow, look at that. What have you got there then, Howard?
This is a noctule, which is quite a large British bat. Often the first one in the evening to come out. They come out on dusk.
Yep.
So they're a good one to watch and also to listen for. You can hear the noise he's making. It's audible to us,
Yeah.
whereas most of our bats are ultrasonic, so we can't hear them. Oh, and he's got me.
Yeah. Very sharp teeth,
Very
aren't
sharp
they?
teeth. And eats quite large prey. Things like cockchafer beetles and big moths.
Oh, really big prey. What's that in his mouth there?
It looks like he's got a little abscess there in his gum.
Yeah.
Can't shut his mouth properly, and it looks like he's got a canine missing too. So he's probably a bit of an old warrior, this one. I think maybe we should get him back in the box.
Yeah.
Bats naturally roost in hollow tree trunks, but the nesting boxes provide an excellent opportunity to monitor their numbers and the various species that are present in the forest. Of the 17 bat species found in Britain, 13 have been recorded here.
A big colony of Natterer's bats in here, eh? There you go. And
Wow, look at that.
we've got some ringed adults in there that are 4 or 5 years old, and a few sort of quite well-grown youngsters as well. So there's probably 15 or 20 bats in that little colony.
That's fantastic.
They're quite cute, quite a social little group of bats.
I'm going to close that up gently because they're very delicate, aren't they?
They're very delicate, yeah. I don't understand why people are scared of them. They're a very beautiful animal. They're our only truly flying mammal, and they're so superbly adapted to their different environments that you can't help but love them and be fascinated by them.
As evening falls, the forest bats will emerge to hunt and stake their claim of the night sky. Forests in the dark are exciting places. The trees take on a whole new personality at night by moonlight or torchlight.
These old forests, particularly with the oak trees, can be really good repositories of insects. And tonight I'm coming to have a look at some moths with the head keeper of the New Forest, Andy Page. Evening, Andy, how are you?
Evening, Ray.
How's it going? All
Fine,
right.
thanks, yes.
How are you getting on?
Slow, but there's one or two really good forest specialities here tonight, so yeah, quite pleased.
You've got a buff tip there, Andy. Don't they just look like the broken tip of a birch twig?
Oh yeah, people think of moths as being quite boring things, but as you can see, there's a whole array of colours and shapes and sizes here. So the beauty of moth trapping is that there's new species turning up in this country every year. So you could get a complete novice could start trapping tomorrow, and you could turn up something that's never been recorded in this country before.
So what are some of the specialities here in the forest?
At this time of year now, right at the beginning of August, it's right the good time for light and dark crimson underwing, 2 real New Forest specialities, and I've had one of each coming here tonight.
Where's that?
I think there's, right, if you look
I'll
at this,
come round.
I've got one here,
Yep.
right?
Let's have a look.
Light and crimson underwing.
There we go. Oh, look at that. That is
Spectacular.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
And what's the function of that colour, do you think?
I don't really know. I mean, the moth at rest is so well camouflaged on the oak trees. I mean, if you put that on the bark of a tree without the crimson showing, it would just melt away.
Yeah. Elephant hawk moth there. They're a real favourite. They're lovely. Now, what's that feeding on? Because I'd expect that to be on willow herb, but there's not much of that to be found.
There's quite a lot of bed straw in the forest, and they're often on that. Yeah.
What else have you found?
We've got the pine hawks here, come from off the pine.
Like the flakes of a Scots pine
Yeah.
bark. Amazing. So what's the purpose of studying the insect?
All these species go through natural fluctuations anyway, but obviously when we're actively managing the forest, we do burning of the open forest, cutting of the open forest, we're managing our woodlands, got lots of visitors here. There's impacts all the way along the line which are affecting some of this wildlife. Us monitoring it gives us more of a handle, and hopefully we can tailor our management to cater for the needs of as many of the species we find here as we can.
I've come to the New Forest in Hampshire. Once described as like a scene from medieval England, this rich tapestry of ancient woodlands and heathland provides a wonderfully diverse wildlife habitat that is little changed since the forest's inception. It was created almost 1,000 years ago by William the Conqueror, who set it aside as a royal hunting ground. One of the most prized species to hunt was the fallow deer. You can still see 2,000 of these deer here today, roaming wild beneath canopies of mighty oak and beech. Their keen sense of smell and hearing make them highly alert to predators, and at the slightest hint of danger, they're able to melt unseen into the undergrowth, providing medieval huntsmen with a real challenge.
Medieval hunting is fascinating, and there were some authors who wrote down the tips and advice that was given to hunters, and one of them was for camouflage to make a wreath like this, covered in oak leaves, as a headdress. And it works really well, particularly on a hot day, because it breaks up the big white shining human face with leaf coverage that you can carry with you. It really is very effective.
Bugs there. Antlers, really large, still covered in velvet. Amazing how they can run through the trees with all that on top of their head.
The deer are an inextricable link to the forest's past and present, their browsing helping to maintain the open structure of the woodland. But they're only a small part of the story behind this forest's unique landscape.
When people come to the New Forest for the first time, they're often surprised to learn that a third of the forest is actually heath and not trees. When you come down to the area here where the forest is meeting the heathland, you find a battle taking place. These areas are always interesting, and you can see that in amongst the heaths and the heathers are young birch trees growing. Birch trees are the pioneers of forests. Because of their white bark, they can reflect heat, and that means that they can tolerate exposure in open areas. They grow, create a shade that then other trees exploit and grow. And what happens, of course, is that the heaths and the heathers are smothered and they disappear, and you just get forest again. Today, a massive effort goes in to protect the heath from this kind of decay, because we've learned to value heath for its own sake.
Britain's precious lowland heath is largely restricted to warmer southern parts of England, where it provides an important habitat for breeding birds, heathers, and our native reptiles.
Good morning, Martin. How are you? Long time no see.
Reptile expert Martin Noble has brought me to the reptile's prime territory.
We've got all 6 reptile species that occur in Britain here, and as you see, a lovely area of heathland, mature heather, perfect site for them.
Martin has been working with the Forestry Commission on a captive breeding programme to reintroduce one of our rarest reptiles, the sand lizard, after its disappearance from Hampshire 40 years ago.
So Martin, what are you looking for?
Well, this is the sort of site, Ray. We've got a bit of open ground here, which make it easier for us to see the lizards as they release, but with a backdrop of nice deep heather, which gives them protection they need from predators, because they are very tiny, very vulnerable to predation, from predatory birds like kestrels down to things like blackbirds, which will take small lizards as well. So there's a lot of predators out there.
It's a hard life for a sand lizard.
It's a hard life, yeah. We keep them in a nice cool box so they don't get overheated in this sort of weather.
Look at that, aren't they beautiful?
I mean, these aren't very old, maybe a couple of weeks old perhaps, but as you can see, quite active. Isn't that a little beauty?
Gosh, look at that, stunning, the lovely markings.
Superb, isn't it? Let him go. Or her, as the case may be. Oops, that was very good.
Straight into the bushes, very wise.
Good, that's one. Let's try another one, shall we? There we are. Isn't he a beauty?
They're the delicate little feet.
Yes, they're tiny, aren't they? Up and down here.
Off you go, little fella.
Come on, Titch. Yeah.
So Martin, how do you feel about releasing sand lizards like this?
Well, it's mixed emotions, Ray. I spent a lot of time and devoted a lot of energy into, first of all, keeping and looking after the parents of these animals, and then digging out the eggs, incubating the eggs in our airing cupboard at home. It's a ongoing, long operation, culminating in the release of animals like this, which is very satisfying because I know that we've done it before many, many times over the last 20 or so years, and we know it works. It works really well when you've got a good habitat like this, good, strong, healthy lizards, well looked after, and we know they've got the best possible chance.
Reptiles are secretive creatures, spending a third of the year in hibernation and only emerging to bask in full sun. On duller days like today, they seek refuge under fallen trees and, with a bit of luck, this strategically placed piece of tin.
Let's see what's under here. Oh, an adder.
That's an adder. Yes, I was expecting a spoon steak, to be honest, and changed my mind at the last minute and thankfully didn't get bitten.
That could have been unpleasant because, of course, the adder's their only venomous snake, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this looks like a female.
This is a female, yes. Brown, dark brown zigzag with a sort of palish background colour.
It looks like this snake's about to shed its skin. Its eye's quite milky.
It is, as the skin is prepared for shedding. A fluid develops between the new and the old skin, which assists the actual shedding process. But of course, because the eye has its own individual scale, transparent scale, the milk appears there and makes it look blind, which effectively it is.
Although virtually blind, the snake can actually pinpoint where we are by using its forked tongue to pick up scent particles, which are then transferred and processed in small grooves in the roof of its mouth.
So should we leave her in peace?
Good idea. Yes, I think she's seen enough of us today.
Yep.
Come the evening, the heath, just like the forest, begins to take on a different atmosphere. This is the time that nightjars take to the wing to hawk for insects. These mysterious birds arrive here from their wintering grounds in Africa to court and breed during the summer.
Well, the sun's dropped well below the horizon. I've just got the last rays of sunshine, and I'm hoping that by putting myself amongst these trees with these dead branches around me, that I might get to see some flying here or even perching. The problem is, it's all going to happen after dark. So we're going to switch now to a night vision camera, which has a monochrome picture. So don't adjust your sets, just keep your fingers crossed along with me.
Like skilled ventriloquists, male nightjars are able to throw their voices off into the darkness, making it difficult to pinpoint the source.
All around me, I can hear the nightjars calling. This churring sound, almost like an alien invasion. Just one of those special sounds of the night.
They make this flapping sometimes with their wings, and you flicking your fingers, you can make that sound. And there it goes. There we go. Here, 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 here. Come here. Isn't that fantastic? Look at that. Look here. I love the way these birds fly. There's a confidence about them. They're a real secret bird of the night. But they remind me of model aircraft. When I was a kid, you used to get these kits you could put together and you'd throw them, and the wings used to sit at a certain angle. It's exactly the angle of the nightjar's wings. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? The nightjar silhouetted on the end of that branch.
In daylight, you hardly ever see them. They're just so amazingly camouflaged. They look like a lichen-covered stick. And of course, now in the evening, all I can see is what you see, is a silhouette. But despite that, you get a sense of the bird, its spirit, its personality, its characteristics. It's wonderful.
Even by night, the New Forest doesn't disappoint. For me, it's a real jewel in the crown of wild Britain.